Today, I'm going to share with you the 7 top automations that I use in my service-based business to make it more profitable and more efficient. You can use these too. So let's go ahead and check it out in copilotcrm.com. And I'm not going to show you the entire sequence today. I just want to get the understanding and start thinking about how automations can massively improve your business, make it more efficient, and reduce the amount of office staff and overhead you need to grow your business. All right, let's jump in. Let's go create this one, which is going to be called SMS after meeting. Now, what I want to do here is after the meeting with the customer is completed, in fact, 15 minutes after it's completed, I want to text the customer. And I'm literally going to send them a text template that's going to say, it was great to meet you. Keep an eye on your email because I'm going to be sending you over that quote via email. Now, my next favorite automation is the ability to be able to remind someone on your team or your mechanic that you need the oil change. So I'm going to go ahead and create a recurring to-do on my visits. Now, it's not going to be a single one. It's going to be recurring. I'm going to do it, let's see, every single month on the first... Let's do on the first Monday of every 1 month. I want to make sure that it reminds them to do the specific oil changes on the equipment. Now I'm going to go back into my automations and I'm going to go create an automation that is going to then remind them of the oil change right before that date. So the first Monday of every single month, there's going to be a to-do on someone's schedule. I want to make sure, though, that before an equipment maintenance happens, before that happens, I want to run 1 day before the event, and I'm going to do, let's assume that this is actually going to be an employee, right? You could go ahead and text an employee. You could text a customer and then make that customer into your mechanic if you wanted to, literally just say, hey, I'm going to be bringing over the trucks, for example, to do oil changes. But in this case, let's assume that we're going to text one of the employees that we have designated these to-dos for, and then we can literally choose exactly which employee, what the text template's going to say, and remind them the day before every single month that they're responsible for the oil changes. All right, my third automation that I love is the ability to be able to text message your applicants before the interview. So you might look at their application, you might see that they're really great, give them a call, you set up the interview, but it might be 3 or 4 days from now. Maybe they got an application on Friday, you reviewed it, called the references, and you set up an interview for next Tuesday. We need to make sure we stay in touch with them. Emails, phone calls are great, but let's go ahead and we can do text messages and emails automatically to make sure that they are reminded of their interview time, because sometimes just getting them to the interview is half the battle. So let's go ahead and create my next favorite automation, which is the SMS applicant before interview, because we've seen that text messages really help with getting applicants to the interview process. So the trigger on this one is going to be before a meeting happens, and I'm going to ensure that this happens 2 days before the event. And so that way, when I schedule the meeting with this quote unquote customer, which is going to be, you see here, action, I'm going to go ahead and do text customer. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this customer is a potential employee. Because look at this, underneath my customer's profile, I'm going to have this Joe employee, and he's going to be a potential employee. What's really cool is I can determine exactly the customer type, and I'm going to make him a potential employee so that leading up to the interview process, I can actually remind him via text message and email of that interview and make sure that day 1, day 2, day 3, the days prior leading up to the interview, he's reminded of our time, what to bring, and what he can expect during the interview process. Now, the next one is the most simple and basic of the automations, but probably is going to pay for your software in spades, and that is your estimate follow-up. The ability that once an estimate has been sent, that it actually follows up on the quote every day, 2 days, whatever you have, until the estimate is either marked won or lost. And that's extremely important. You don't want just estimates being sent out in the ether and you never get a response back. It's amazing to me how 30-40% of people that you send an estimate to, you never even hear back from. So you've got to follow up with them. Send them text messages, send them emails, have a reminder sent to your office staff to give them a call. These are things that can be done inside the automation. So the next one's called my estimate follow-up. I'm going to do, the trigger is going to be when a estimate is sent. And then I'm going to run this, let's see, 1 day after the trigger. And then what's really cool is after I do this, I'm going to do, let's go ahead and text the customer. Fantastic. I'd be able to select a text template. And then I can create a sequence by doing a sub action and just running another automation. So after day 1, I'm going to do day 2, then day 3, then day 5, then day 7, then day 10, however many days you want to do a follow-up process. And some of those could be text messaging the customer. Some of them could be emailing the customer. Some of them could be emailing your office staff so that it reminds them to give the customer a call on the phone. These are all things that can be done via automation. So you don't have to remember or do, what do they call the notes, what do they call it? Sticky notes all over your desk and pieces of paper scribbled here and there. Be professional and have it automated. Another important process that you've got to automate And the fifth automation that I love so much is your invoice and collections automations. Because once you send out your invoice, if someone doesn't pay, like assuming that you're not having a credit card on file or a bank card on file, which is the most ideal scenario. And absolutely, I would love to be able to go into the customer profile just like this, go into their profile and have their credit card right on file. But if this, for example, this customer does not have this on file. If I scroll down, I can see here, they haven't set up their client portal and they don't have an ACH or a credit card. If they did, I'd see it right here. So because they don't have it already set up inside their client portal, I'm going to make sure that I have automations to follow up with them. So at least they, look at the invoice and pay with it via credit card from the invoice, or maybe send me a check if that's what you're doing. So let's go ahead and open up the automation. Let's go ahead and click new. I'm going to go ahead and call this one my invoice follow-up and collections. And this is going to be when the invoice becomes past due. Now, the reason I'm going to do this is because some customers, I might have them become past due upon receipt, which is like the day after I send it to them. Other people, I might have a net 10 or net 30 for property managers. They might require that you give them 30 days to pay. So that net 30 allows them 30 days before it goes past due. But as soon as this trigger becomes present, I'm going to be immediately emailing this customer. And I'm going to say, let's hear, email the customer, boom. And I'm going to be telling them, hey, you're overdue. Maybe 7 days after the trigger, once I do another sub action of another automation being ran, I might wait another 7 days and send them another one and say, hey, look, within 2 weeks, we're going to be stopping service. And if they continue, then they're going to be sent to collections. I'm going to have an automatic email coming back to my office with instructions on how to submit that to a collections agency to make sure we get our money, at least some of it back. If you have to go to collections, it's not great because you usually got to give 30, 40% of your money to the collections agency, but it's better than getting nothing. But the goal is that there's a sequence of events that's emailing the customer and letting them, put a credit card on file. We want to avoid sending you to collections. It's going to hurt your credit. I know all of this can be avoided by having a credit card on file or a bank ACH card on file, but if you're taking checks or you're allowing people to pay via just one-off on their invoices via credit card, you're going to need to make sure you have an invoice follow-up process. And if at the worst comes to worst, send them to collections. Now, my sixth automation that I love so much is the ability to have a survey that if they have a good survey, I give them an ability to leave an online review. But if it's a bad survey, I send them into a form that's internal to protect people from trying to air out dirty laundry before giving me the chance to go rectify and fix the problem. So how do we do that? Well, first and foremost, from the client portal, they're able to submit surveys. I'm going to send these out periodically via another automation to ask them how they were satisfied and if they were satisfied with their job. Now, you can really easily create this login profile. They can click on the client login. They'd immediately be able to log into their client portal. From the client portal, they can submit work requests, pay for invoices. They can see all of their past billing. They can put their ACH and their credit card on file. They can do all sorts of cool stuff. But one of the other things they can do is leave a survey. Now, if they leave a positive survey, I'm going to want to make sure they also post that online on like Google and Facebook and other review sites. So what I can do is go into my marketing, go into automations, create a new automation. I'm going to go ahead and call this one online review request. Now for the trigger, you'll see here, if I scroll to the bottom here, there's a customer that has left a review with a rating of 4 to 5 stars. It's safe to say that they're happy and I want to get an online review from them. Now I'm going to create a different automation for the person that would leave a review on their client portal of 0 to 3.5 because that email automation is going to be like, hey, submit this form so we can become better. Tell us exactly what we didn't do right. Please let us know so we can rectify the problem. I want that to come internally. It's probably like a Google form or any sort of form that's internal. Whereas if I want to make them leave an online review that's positive on Google, Facebook, etc., I can have the trigger being if they leave a review on their client portal of 4 or 5 stars, and then I'm going to immediately send them a text message, and I'm going to literally text message them a link to my Google page with a review link so they can click on it and immediately leave me a positive review. That's fantastic because they're probably on their desktop version or maybe their mobile actually if they are on their client portal submitting this review, this survey, and they only get the request for an online review that's public if it's 4 or 5 stars. If it's less than 4 stars, it's going to go directly to me internally as a form and I can deal with the problem before it becomes public and before dirty laundry is aired. Now, the last automation that I love so much is making sure that the credit card or ACH, the bank information that's on the client's profile, is always updated. Because really cool about Copilot is the fact that I'm able to see credit cards that are on file and ACH bank cards that are on file and be able to charge them automatically. And I can manage those credit cards and make sure they're up to date all the time. But I don't want to do that manually because I have 5, 6, 700 weekly mowing customers. I don't want to deal with that. So what do? You create an automation. For everything in your business, you can save yourself hours just by creating really good automations. Let's go ahead and create this new automation. It's going to be called Update Credit Card. And what we're going to have the trigger as, if we scroll down here, you can see here if the customer removes the credit card. I don't want that. They might take the credit card off their profile, and then the next time the invoice goes out, there's no longer a credit card on file. And I hate that. I hate when someone's able to take a credit card off file or take their bank statement off file, and now I can't charge them. And that was part of my agreement with them. And although they have to have certain consumer protections and consumer rights to withdraw payment information from being on file, I want to make sure that I really press them to get this card on file. I'm going to have them, this is the trigger, customer remove the credit card on file. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to email them immediately when they remove that credit card and ask them to put it back on file and why it's so important for us to have that credit card information on file. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to set up a second automation that is going to email my office staff, and they are going to check it the day after this trigger to ensure that a card was added. Because if they took their credit card off a file, and I am requiring credit cards on file, I want to not only remind them, but the day after, I'm going to have my office check and see manually, did they add a credit card on file? Because if they didn't, I'm probably giving them a call, and I'm literally going to say, you have to have a credit card on file in order to proceed with service. These were just 7 examples of an endless plethora of amount of automations that can make your business more profitable and more efficient. If you're wondering what software you need to do this, check this video out here where I compare 5 or 6 of the best software packages on the market. And they're everything from Copilot that we just talked about here to Jobber, Service Autopilot, LMN, and Yardbook. All great options by compare and contrast the pros and the cons of them right here.